Men, if you are struggling with dancer pose, if you can't reach down and grab your foot, if you notice that your knees are bent while you're doing this, you can't keep your hips squared forward, then watch this video. I'm going to show you some modifications that you can use to build up to doing dancer pose while making sure that you keep your body safe and are still getting the benefits. Let's get this started by showing you what a full dancer pose looks like. I'm also going to show you proper technique. So we're going to start looking straight forward on your mat. I'm going to do this standing on my right foot. So I'm going to squeeze my left heel in toward my butt. I'm going to turn my left palm to face out. Notice how I externally rotate that hand. I'm going to grab the big toe side of this foot, keep my biceps facing out. My hips, my shoulders are squared straight forward. My right arm comes up. Big breath in, keeping my hips neutral, my lower back neutral. Hips neutral too. And then as you exhale, press as hard as you can into your left hand with your left foot. Reach forward and down with your right hand. Keep your hips squared forward. You want to make sure that you're not turning your hips to face out like this, so that my left thigh is facing down. And then kicking hard into that left hand, reaching forward and up with the right. The right leg might bend initially, but ideally we're getting to a straight leg here, staying active through your quadriceps, so you're not being passive there. And then you're holding this, breathing in and out of your nose, keeping your core tight. Shouldn't be any pinching in your low back, focusing on a non-moving point straight in front of you. So that is what your full dancer pose looks like. And there's actually a lot that goes into this that can make it difficult. So first off, just the starting position is actually pretty hard to do because it takes a lot of hamstring strength to be able to squeeze your heel in toward your butt and just hold this and then be able to reach back and grab your foot. So first off, that's difficult to do. So you might notice that you have to kick your leg up fast and then kind of uncontrolled and grab it. That's something that I see a lot of. You also just might not have the hamstring strength in that end range of motion to be able to squeeze it up and grab it. So a lot of people end up not being able to grab the foot just because their hamstrings are so tight. The other part that makes this hard is it's a balancing posture. So you might have difficulty standing and balancing on one foot and just getting set to do this. So that's another thing that makes it difficult. Another thing that makes it difficult is hamstring flexibility. So as you're going into the pose, we're starting here. If you press through that back foot and you lean forward, you're actually not just working your hip flexors here, you're also working on your hamstring flexibility. So if your hamstrings are really tight, your knees are going to bend significantly. It's going to be difficult to get your legs straight as you're kind of in this dancer position, bringing your chest forward. So hamstring flexibility is also challenging here. And then last but not least, it's also difficult because there's a hip flexibility aspect. There's quadriceps and hip flexors here as an issue. So getting into the pose, pushing here, this does take a significant amount of hip flexor strength, hip flexor flexibility, and it also takes some glute strength. So there's a lot going on in this pose that makes it difficult. Balance, hamstrings, hip flexors, glute strength. And so that's why it is a difficult pose to master. So now let's go into some modifications that you can use. So the easiest way to modify this is going to be with a strap. I would also recommend that you have a wall or something that you can hold on to nearby just to assist with the balance as you get set up. So grab your yoga strap. If you don't have a yoga strap, get a yoga strap if you're going to be doing a lot of yoga. You can also use a belt, a dog leash, something that resembles a strap while you wait. And what you're going to do is you're going to set up the strap so that you can slip your foot through it. So I've got a little hole here. I'm going to put that around my foot, do my left foot first. And then easy way to do this, actually without really requiring much balance, a yoga strap is pretty long, so this makes it nice for doing this. So what you're going to do is put the strap kind of over your shoulder like you see me doing. I've got the strap on my foot. And then from here, you're going to squeeze that heel in toward your butt. And now I've got my heel up where I want it to be. And this is kind of step one. This is my modification. Now, something that you'd want to do here, instead of just being passive and pulling the foot up, it helps to actually push your foot back into the strap. So pushing my foot into the strap is going to help me build some strength here. It's going to help me build some active mobility, and that's going to make it so I can do this without the strap with a little bit more ease later on. So then from here, I can choke up on the strap, so I can hold it kind of like this, right? I can just get as close as I can to my foot, kind of inching down. And again, this is where it does help to have something to balance nearby. So if you want to, put your hand on a wall, or if you want to hold on to a couch or something, that's a great idea here. And then from here, we can work on doing that dancer pose, right? We're pushing the foot back, we're leaning forward, and this is a way that you can modify or get into it. So that's option number one. Another way that we can modify this is by changing up the grip. So I mentioned at the beginning, and when I showed you the proper technique, to do this, you want to turn the palm to face out to start. So pretend like you're holding something or someone's placing something important in your hands. You're opening your hand to receive it. And then from here, you're bringing the heel in toward the butt, and you're keeping the arm like it is now, right? The biceps face out, externally rotating this arm, not internally rotating and grabbing like this. So this is the proper way to do it, like you see me doing here, gripping the big toe side, biceps facing out. But that does take a significant amount of hamstring mobility to do. So here's a way that you can kind of cheat and make it easier. So this is another situation where it might be helpful to find some wall or something to hold on to. But instead of turning the palm out and then gripping the big toe side, it could be easier to do kind of a more traditional standing quadricep stretch, where you bring the heel in toward your butt, but then you bend the standing leg. You reach down and kind of grab the outside of the foot instead of the big toe side. And this isn't quite the grip that we want to have, but this is better than not being able to grab the foot at all. And then from here, once you do grab the foot, then we can straighten that leg and come up into more of a dancer pose, right? And this is okay. This is going to be fine. And actually, once you get into this position, once you've got the outside of the foot, it's pretty easy to kind of move your hand over to the big toe side. So again, we're going to bend the right knee, a standing leg, bring the heel in toward the butt. You can even reach down and grab your shin, and then from there kind of walk your hand up the foot, up the outside of the foot, and then from there to the inside of the foot to get to your starting position. So this is a way that you can kind of cheat your way into it, which is fine, right? So that's something that we can do as well to make this easier. Before I show you how to improve your strength and flexibility for dancer pose to be able to build up to doing it in the full expression, I do want to caution you against doing this internal rotation thing like this. This is putting your shoulder in a position that is just not really ideal for this position. There's nothing wrong with internally rotating your shoulder. In fact, you should have strength and internal rotation of your shoulder. You want to have both internal and external strength in that rotation. But it's not a great position for holding your foot here. So this is just not a fan of it. It's a little awkward. It's going to make it difficult for you later on when you're trying to do dancer pose. So it is going to be more helpful to you to use those other modifications that I showed you, using that strap, or again, kind of bending the knee, starting the strap, starting to the shin, getting your foot to the outside, and then to the inside of the foot. And that's going to make this a lot easier. The last modification that I can show you here to help out with is using a wall. And I kind of already showed you that, but basically doing the dancer on the wall, you're just going to make sure that you have something nearby, that wall, something, a couch, a counter, whatever you have, just something that's sturdy that you can just kind of rest your hand on. And that will make it a lot easier for you to get into that initial position. And then from there, you can even keep your hand on your wall as you push your foot into your hand and kind of descend into dancer pose. You can hold on to something. You could even stack blocks and do this if you wanted to. It might not actually make it that much easier, but if you wanted to, you could, like so, as long as you've got pretty stable blocks. But the third modification here, yes, is using something to help steady yourself so that balance is not as much of a factor. All right, guys, before I go into the next part of this video, and this is where I'm going to show you how to work on your strength and flexibility for your hamstrings, your hip flexors, your core, and your balance to get better at dancer pose, I want to mention I've got a free 7-day sexual wellness challenge. If you're doing this video, there's a good chance you want to have better sex. You can sign up for that for free at the link in the description below once this video is finished. So we're going to go through these different strengths and weaknesses in the order that they were presented. So the first thing was the hamstring mobility issue. So one way that we're going to work on that, this is an exercise called a heel slide. And this is a really common technique. It's actually really important for knee replacements, and also if you have any sort of knee issues, if you have difficulty bending your knee in like this is a really basic exercise that you can do to increase your functional hamstring mobility. So what you're going to do is you're going to sit down on the floor. You can also do this lying down on a table of some sort or on the ground. What we're going to do is we're just going to squeeze one leg in like this, kind of dragging your heel in toward your butt. Squeeze it in as tight as you can. Hold for a second or two, and then slide it back out. So you're just going to do 10 of these. I would do really nice, slow, controlled reps like you see me doing. I'm not squeezing it in and then like putting it back out, but squeezing it in slowly, getting it in as tight as I can, feeling my hamstrings tense up. You might feel some cramping in your hamstrings as you do this. If you're not used to doing this type of movement, then you might feel that cramping. But this is helping to build the functional strength so that when we do go into a dancer, right, and we squeeze that heel in toward the butt, we're able to do that initial position. So I would do 3 sets of 10 of these. You want to make sure that you do both sides here. You don't really need to take much rest between the reps. Just do them. And you'll probably be able to do this immediately before dancer pose and notice an immediate improvement. So if you do dancer pose, you notice that you're just not able to get your heel in toward your butt that day, do a few of these, do a couple sets of these per side, and you should notice that you're able to get that heel in closer to the butt and able to start that dancer. The second exercise that you can do to work on this is basically a hamstring curl. So I'm going to have you lie on your chest. You're going to work on squeezing your heel in toward your butt, really squeezing it as tight as you can. Again, you might feel some cramping here as you do this, and then slowly releasing. And you can do 10 of these. This is something that you can also do in the gym. If you have a hamstring curl machine, you can do this either seated or in this prone position like this. Second aspect of this pose that makes it difficult is the hamstring flexibility. So this is kind of the opposite of what we just did. So what we do here, squeezing the heel in toward the butt, this is building strength in the hamstring while it's in a shortened position. And this has a little bit to do with your quadricep flexibility. This is one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is while one leg is doing this, the other leg, your standing leg, is actually stretching your hamstrings. And so if you have difficulty going into dancer with your legs staying relatively straight, so let's say you start doing dancer and your leg starts to bend like this, and you get kind of more closer to, like you're doing a lunge, that's a sign that your hamstrings are too tight. So hamstring flexibility, just like all of the things that we do with these workouts and then Manful Yoga programs, that's just going to come with time and consistency. So my 3 favorite poses are the ones that I'll just list here for working on your hamstring flexibility. We've got a pyramid pose. So starting from a warrior 1, reaching down, keeping your back flat, and then straightening that front leg until you feel stretching the back of your left thigh, this front leg. This is one thing that you can do. This is a pyramid pose. This is a really good one for increasing hamstring flexibility. We can also do a supported airplane. So using blocks, I'm going to go into an airplane, and then I'm going to straighten my leg as much as I can while keeping my back flat. And this is something that I can hold for 30 to 60 seconds. Again, this is targeting the back of your thigh, your hamstring. And another one that's really good for this is a wide-legged forward fold. So coming into a wide-legged position, keeping your back flat. Notice me from the side, right? I'm keeping my back flat as I fold in this position, and then working on your hamstring flexibility there. And that's going to, over time, if you can do these poses, or at least focus on your hamstring flexibility 3 times per week over the course of 4 weeks, you should notice pretty significant improvement in terms of your ability to do a dancer pose. And with that increased hamstring flexibility, your dancer pose is going to go from kind of looking like this with your knee bent, closer to having that leg in a straighter position. You do want to make sure that the hamstring, that your knee isn't totally locked out all the way. I would keep a slight bend to that knee. And then the last thing I want to show you is just a couple poses to work on that hip flexor mobility. So there's a lot of poses that work on this. Any sort of lunge is going to work on your hip flexor mobility. So, we can do a high lunge like this, right leg forward, left leg back, and that's going to stretch your left hip flexors. We can also take this lower into a low lunge. And from here, if you want to work on this a little bit more, we can go into a couch stretch. So heel squeezing in toward the butt, reaching back with the foot, and then grabbing that. Now that pose is going to be really difficult for most people. If you're having difficult with dancer, getting your foot to your heel, then this pose is going to be pretty difficult, that couch pose. We actually did another one of those videos as part of this modification series. Check it out in the link in the description below. And you can watch that video, learn more about how to increase your quadricep and your hip flexor flexibility. Ooh, I forgot. One more thing I want to show you, improving your balance. So balance is largely glute and core strength. There's also ankles and hips, but glutes are really important here. So if you notice that you're doing a dancer pose and your foot kind of turns out to the side, so your foot's facing out to the side a little bit and your chest is facing forward, kind of like this, that means that there's a lack of glute strength involved. So one thing that you can do to work on your glute strength, my favorite exercise for this, really basic but really effective, is a single leg bridge. So you're going to do a bridge, feet underneath your knees, pressing up, squeezing your butt, and then from here, bring one leg out while keeping your hips squared. So don't let your hip dip. You want to keep your hips level with one another, and you're really going to focus on squeezing the outer glute in the back of your hip. So this whole back and outside of your hip area should be fully engaged as you're doing a single leg bridge. And if you do that a few times per week, that's going to help your stability for balance. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Be sure to like the video if you found it helpful. Leave a comment if you have a question or some feedback. Subscribe so you don't miss out on future videos. We have a few more of these modification series videos coming out. We also have 6 of these that have already been released here for free on the YouTube channel. So go to youtube.com/manfulyoga, the Manful Yoga homepage, and you can check out those videos right now. Again, we've got that free 7-day sexual wellness challenge. Link to sign up for that is in the description below. And to get you started on another one of those modification videos, click in the upper right-hand corner, and I'm going to show you how to modify down dog.